Even though he was snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley now has proof that he is one of the NBA's defensive juggernaut as the award season wraps up.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Hey there folks, I'm Evan Dammarrell, founder of the independent site and newsletter Down Euclid, which covers the entire Cleveland sports scene at large. I'm also one of the hosts of Locked On Cavs. Going solo on this one, so please bear with me, but I'm going to espouse a lot of praise about Evan Mobley. As always, Jake Stevens is producing this show. Check out his EP, If We Fall Asleep Too Early, anywhere you get your music. PokeMMO is my favorite track. And I want to thank you all again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which features your team every day. Also, you can catch NBA games on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Cavs or whatever NBA team you want to listen to. Finally, folks, I don't know if you've heard, but you can subscribe to the Locked On Cavs subtext where you can get behind-the-scenes info about the Cavs and ask us questions about the team at any time. The link to the subscribe is in the show notes below, so claim your free one-month trial right now. So, the NBA announced today that Cleveland Cavaliers big man Evan Mobley has been named to the 2022-23 NBA All-Defensive First Team. Mobley becomes just the 7th player in Cavs history to earn the defensive team honors, joining Jim Brewer, who was second team in the 1975-76 and the 76-77 season, Jim Clemens, who was second team in the 75-76 season, Larry Nance Sr., first team in the 88-89 and second team in the 91-92 season, and the 92-93 season, Bobby Phills, second team in 95-96, LeBron James, first team in 2008-2009 and 2009-2010, and Anderson Varejao, who is second team in the 09-10 season and is the first Mobley, to do so since the 09-10 season. Mobley, who's 21 years old, also becomes the second youngest player in NBA history to be named All-Defensive First Team, behind only Kobe Bryant, who is 21 years, 71 days, at the end of the 99-00 season, and is the third Cavalier ever to make the first team, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. And he is also the last NBA player to make the all-defensive team in his first or second season since Tim Duncan in the 98-99 season, which was Duncan's second season. And Mobley is also the last to make a first-team honor in his first or second campaign since Dom Buse in the 1976-77 season, which was Buse's first season. Mobley played in a team-best 79 games this past regular season and averaged career highs in points, rebounds, assists, minutes, field goal percentage, to go along with 1.51 blocks, which was 9th best in the NBA, and just a shade under 1 steal per game. He ranked first in the league in defensive win shares, tied for first in contested three-pointers per game, and he was 4th in the NBA in total contested shots per game as well. Additionally, he recorded at least 1 block in 59 games, which is 4th most in the NBA, and his 119 total blocks were the 6th most in the NBA. Mobley helped the Cavaliers rank number 1 in defensive rating and number 1 in opponent points per game. Cleveland held teams to under 100 points in the NBA, NBA best 24 times, and no other team had more than 17 such games. The next closest was the Boston Celtics with 16. Mobley registered a career-high 24 double-doubles and was one of only 3 NBA players this season averaging at least 15 points on 50% shooting or better, along with 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 block, matching Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis in that honor. And went over Milwaukee on January 1st. He became the fourth NBA player since three-pointers were adopted in 1979 to score at least 38 points without a single free throw or three-pointer made, joining Hakeem Olajuwon, who did it in 1997, Alex English, who did it in 1988, and also in 1984, and George Gervin, who did it in 1985 versus the San Antonio Spurs. Additionally, Mobley was the only one of 3 players in Cavs history to record 8 blocks or more in a single game, accomplishing that feat on November 4th at Detroit and finished the season with at least 4 blocks on 8 occasions. Mobley was the number 3 pick in the 2021 NBA draft and in a unanimous NBA All-Rookie first-team selection following his rookie campaign. Mobley owns career averages of 15.6 points on a shade over 50% shooting, along with 8.7 rebounds, 2.7 assists, and 1.6 blocks in about 34 minutes per game in 2 seasons with Cleveland. His field goal percentage of 53.3% ranks 3rd in franchise history for players with a minimum of 500 field goals made, and Mobley is also the only player in Cavs history to accumulate at least 1,400 points on 50% shooting, along with 800 rebounds, 200 assists, 150 blocks in their first 100 career games. Full disclosure, Mobley is joined by Defensive Player of the Year Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year runner-up Brook Lopez, Milwaukee guard Drew Holiday, as well as Chicago guard Alex Caruso for the first-team all-defensive group. For me, after Mobley is snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year, the numbers don't lie. He was better than Triple J on the court this year, and he was also better than Brook Lopez. This is a well-deserved honor for Mobley. More than anything, it's validation that Mobley is one of the NBA's most significant defenders, and, in fact, he's more accomplished in his second year already boggles the mind. For Cleveland, Mobley has always been a catalyst from the moment he joined the team. Mobley turned the Cavs, a hopeful defensive first team, into a force on that end of the court. JB Bickerstaff and anyone you talk to talks about how Mobley is just a unique player in that case of he's a younger player with high expectations that doesn't chase stats or try to implode the team's chances of winning by throwing up a bunch of fugly shots. Instead, Mobley zeroed in on finding the best possible way for Cleveland to win, which was on the defensive side of the court. As I shared before, he's the last NBA player to make all-defensive team in his first or second season since Tim Duncan during the 98-99 season, and was the last player to receive a first-team nod in his first or second season since Don Buse in the 76-77 season. Evan Mobley made history for the Cavs with this award and also the entire NBA. Folks, I cannot stress enough how huge this award is for Mobley. For some, the sky's the limit, but for Mobley, the sky is just what he stands on to reach to the beyond. It's scary to think what that potential could be when he hits the beyond and what his apex will be as a defender. This season, we saw flashes of him defending in isolation, where he graded out as one of the best in the league as a second-year big man, and of course, he tightened up the screws on the interior thanks to his added bulk heading into the season, showing a lot more comfort defending and banging with bigs down low. Sure, there's going to be a lot of recency bias considering how Cleveland flamed out in the playoffs against the Knicks, but Mobley wasn't the issue for the Cavs. If you want to get a scope on who was, listen to the recap episodes. We're a 5-day-a-week podcast. But the counting stats might seem disappointing with Mobley racking up only 9.8 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.2 blocks per game against New York. But there were moments when Mobley showed flashes of how he could impose his will on either end of the floor heading into the next season for the Cavs. You're probably wondering how Mobley can hit that level so quickly, especially when I shared those stats and just how bad Cleveland looked in the playoffs. Thankfully, dear listener, I'll tell you all about it. First, let me tell you how you can lock in the best possible way to see Mobley next season with a quick word from today's first sponsor, Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. What do I like most about Gametime, you ask? Flash deals and last-minute tickets. They offer easy to find and chances to buy tickets from every event in the greater Cleveland area, and they include images of seat views. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right now, leading up to the day of the event. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy shows, theater, and so much more. The Gametime guarantee also means you'll be getting the best price no matter what. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime will credit you 110%, an additional 10% for the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms again apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Everydayers, Chris and I will be back tomorrow diving into whether or not Donovan Mitchell and his teammates, Evan Mobley included, earned any All-NBA honors on Thursday's show. We hope you join us. Also, want to remind you that the Cavs are done, but you can still listen to the NBA, and you can catch the hometown broadcast or whatever team you want to listen to with the SiriusXM on this SXM app. Just search Cavs or whichever team you want to listen to. Again, I didn't want to leave you hanging for too long, but how can Evan Mobley get better heading into next season just to earn those Defensive Player of the Year honors and a likely second All-Defensive Team honor, especially on the first team side of things? Obviously, adding strength and a bit more touch of mass to his frame would work a lot for Mobley, because the Cavs found a wrinkle with Mobley at the 5 when Allen was out. If Mobley's true ceiling is in a similar mold to Giannis Antetokounmpo as a jack-of-all-trades, master of so much, defensive point center, then Mobley needs to keep growing and add bulk to his frame to handle the rigors of high-intensity defense, especially in the postseason. The other thing is him continuing to find his voice on the court. His teammates joked a lot last season, and at times this year, Mobley was quiet to a fault, and they had to force him to speak, whether it was yelling at him or just trying to pull him out of his shell. Based on my interactions with Evan Mobley, it hasn't changed much. Of course, depending on the topic, he does open up when he's talking about his brother or sometimes his teammates or certain defensive plays, of course, but I think that just speaks more to the fact that Mobley is a cerebral player on the defensive side of the ball. JB Bickerstaff calls him a sponge in terms of just how he absorbs defensive concepts and schemes. And if he's able to share what he absorbs or his knowledge and insight of what he sees and understands defensively, it's going to level up Cleveland all over the floor on the defensive side of the ball and likely solidify his Defensive Player of the Year case, because it's just going to make and the Cavs better, and also, again, lock up those all-defensive honors too, because he was already a better player than Jaren Jackson Jr. or Brook Lopez on the defensive side of the ball. And there's only going to be so many ways that he can kind of crystallize and solidify those cases at the end of the day. I'm curious to see what he does overall. I think, again, just adding bulk to his frame. It's something Altman stressed in his exit interview, that Mobley was investing personally in a home gym. Hopefully that means Cleveland's traders will be around him at any and all times, and he utilizes that and what's available to him at Cleveland Clinic Courts, the Cavs practice facility in nearby Independence, to totally maximize what he can do. Because if you're just looking in the rear view of the postseason, you'd say that's a disappointing showing for Mobley and the Cavs, and defense didn't matter that much. But it doesn't speak for his entire body of work. It doesn't speak for how good Evan Mobley is defensively. Again, he was a lot better than Triple J or Brook Lopez on the defensive side of the ball. And if my co-host is here, I'd hear a Evan, or I don't agree with that, or Chris Manning doing Chris Manning things with his Machiavellian puppet master strings just to guide us through the episode here. But why should we limit Mobley just to Defensive Player of the Year, or even a second all-defense first-team honors? Folks, multiple scouts and front office members from numerous organizations have told me that Mobley could one day be an NBA MVP, but he's already so perfect on defense. And if you're a regular listener, or if this is your first time listening to the show, we talk a lot about how he's blossoming on offense. What else can Mobley do right now to further level up his game at that point? It's simple, but all it really takes at the end of the day is one simple thing: winning. But before we get there, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Everydayers, we'll be diving again into whether or not Donovan Mitchell or his teammates earned any All-NBA honors, so be sure to join us on Thursday's show. Before I go on this tangent about how Evan Mobley impacts winning, let me share with you something JP Bickerstaff told me in late December last year. A conversation we have with Evan, as in Evan Mobley, all the time is that Evan has the opportunity to be the most impactful player on the floor every night. No matter what his numbers are or what they say, there's the intangibles and there's just the overall impact of his presence making the right plays at the right time. It's his two-way ability to protect the paint. Most of the time when guys see him in there, they don't go in there. There's not a stat for that. When he catches the ball and he makes a hockey assist, they don't track that in box scores. His presence in the paint when he's rolling, people have to go to him and he creates more open opportunity for somebody else. They don't track that. They don't put that in the stat sheet. Evan's main thing, and I've always been impressed by it, the only things he cares about is helping us win and doing whatever it takes to make us win. It's an interesting dichotomy that any player, especially one heading into their second season, has to digest. When Mobley is on the floor, opposing NBA offenses have to scheme to avoid to make defensive impact as mitigated as much as possible. A lot of that, sure, is an indication of the respect Mobley has already earned in the NBA in his second season. But even more so, it comes from a place of fear from opponents anytime they have to face Mobley. If you ask anyone around the Cavaliers, Bickerstaff, or his teammates, Mobley and the team wouldn't have it any other way. But despite the disappointing postseason warts, Mobley is the number one player overall in the postseason in terms of defensive win shares, with only 5 games played. That speaks volumes about how good he is defensively. And for context, meanwhile, in the regular season, Mobley was 7th in NBA in defensive win shares and was, in fact, ahead of the, at least in title, Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. For those who don't know, defensive win shares are a player statistic that attributes credit to players based on their ability to prevent opposing teams from scoring. A player's defensive win shares is calculated by estimating the number of points allowed per 100 defensive possessions. So, as I said, for Mobley to level up his to an MVP caliber season next year and beyond, he needs to become a bigger black hole on defense. Mind you, I mean that in the kindest way imaginable, since Mobley can already nearly suffocate opponents on defense. But to go from a defensive juggernaut to the Hulk on the defensive side of the ball, there are a few more things Mobley can do to break through his already hard enough to conceive ceiling. Again, a lot of that has to deal with Mobley bulking up, as I stressed in the last segment, but it's been expressed that it's something he's going to be focusing on this offseason, but while he internalizes and bulks up the tape based on Cleveland's playoff blunder, Mobley needs to study what went wrong against New York in those moments in order to become that MVP caliber player that he can be. As we all know, offensive rebounding was what the Knicks utilized to kill the Cavs in the playoffs. Mobley was no exception to it. In fact, he was a victim of it, allowing 13.8 second chance opportunities per game for New York. Mind you, in the regular season, he did allow 8.5 second chance opportunities per game, but if Mobley can negate those second chance opportunities by whether it's by crashing the glass harder or out hustling opponents, let's be frank, the potential is there, but it will take some small tweaks for Mobley to hit that next level sooner rather than later. Considering how impactful Mobley has been on winning already every step of the way for his NBA career, again, he's been a catalyst for Cleveland going from a pretty crappy team, a pretty bad team with a lot of uncertainties, to an all defensive, just defensive first, defensive rating, defense juggernaut in so little time. It starts and ends with Evan Mobley on the defensive side of the ball. And considering how good he's been from go, I wouldn't be surprised to see Evan Mobley become that defensive player of the year MVP like player heading into his third season, and he just continues to get better and better and better, especially as his offensive game continues to meet him at the summit defensively. and maybe at some point pass him, whether it's with Mobley improving his handle or his three-point shot, or finding some way to make life's hell for opponents on a night-to-night basis. But if you ask me again, it's going to come on defense, and it would not surprise me if Evan Mobley is that dude next season on the defensive side of the ball. But before I head out, I just want to remind you that you can catch NBA games on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Cavs or whatever NBA team you want to listen to. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Everydayers and the first timers, we love you so much. We'll be diving into the all NBA honors, whether it's Donovan Mitchell or any of his teammates on Thursday. Be sure to join us. And thank you again for making Locked On Cavs first listen. Thanks again to Jake Stevens. Check out his EP. And thank you, as always, for checking us out wherever you consume Cavs content. Love ya!